am buzzing, as you can tell. Well, it's winter, it's freezing cold, and you join me down at the stunning Boonies Lake on the Manor Farm Complex in Biggleswade for a winter session where I'm going to try and pit myself against these awesome carp down here in Bedfordshire. Now, the whole point of this session is to go through winter tips, tactics, a bit of advice, and what I do to catch some fish in the winter. So without further ado, without wasting your time, let's get those rods out. For me, winter has always been one of my favourite times to fish, and there is logical and good reason for that. First of all, one of the most important things is the banks are generally quieter. We all hear of solar powered carpers, and to be fair, on occasions I do find myself feeling that I shouldn't go fishing. People get scared of winter. I hear a load of my mates say, oh nah, that's it, I'm giving this winter a miss. And for no logical reason, because let's face facts, those carp in winter colours are a different league of fish. They're good weights, they're solid. It just becomes a war of attrition. And if you can be the stronger, the valiant, if you like, then the successes will surely come. This is winter. It's been minus conditions for the last couple of days. And on the drive down, it was ferociously cold, and I could barely get my bank sticks in because there seems to be a permafrost, which is ideal. However, we're out, we're about, and there's always a chance of a bite in winter. Oh, mate, that's granite. Oh, it's Michael Granitson. Right, well, that's the first two baited rods out on the spot. A really nice, clean, sort of silty area at the back of some gravel. 18 wraps, nice, easy casting, because let's face facts, no one wants to be having to cast the horizon. Now, the opening gambit on those two rods is what I would call my sort of aggressive natural rigs. Short rigs, wafters, one with a big bunch of worms on it, one with a big bunch of maggots on it. And then over the top, I put 20 spawns of what I call my naturals casserole. Now, in that mix, you've got maggots, you've got worms, you've got casters, and then to sort of bind it all together, you've got some super boosted crumbs. So loads of attraction, loads of flavours, loads of aromas, but not a lot of food stuff. And I think at this time of year, that is key. The fish are still definitely feeding, but they're doing it in such small windows, and sort of they're doing it in very little amounts of time. So by using that on those two rods, it means that as they come across it, loads of scent, loads of attraction, they're going to get their noses in there. And then when they come across the rigs that are available to them are loaded with naturals. And I said, it's something I do throughout the year, but certainly in winter, in the colder months, the naturals really do come into their own. Now, alongside that, I'm going to be fishing one of these, which is a zig. Now, at this time of year, you can find that in the days the fish are sort of trying to get themselves up into that higher levels of the water where that sun can penetrate, give them a bit of warmth. And for me, a zig can be a deadly tactic. So what I've gone for this is I've got about 10 foot out there, and I've gone 6 foot. So sort of between 1/2 and 3/4 depth. And the idea is those fish are cruising around in the water, they're going to see a nice floating bit of bunch of maggot, and their instincts are going to take over and they're going to swipe at it. That's not to discount the two rods that are on the deck, because as I said, I think there's always a chance with that natural mix out there, with naturals on the rig, of a fish just cruising along, getting his head down and getting some bites. Winter tactics are vital. Now, for me, there isn't a specific winter tactic that's done me more fish in any way, shape or form. I've caught on probably a myriad of tactics, probably more tactical changes in winter than I have through any other season. And that's purely because you're trying to find what the fish want on a very small amount of time. But as I said, it is all about that activity. Throwing out 3 zigs at the same depth with the same colours on, sat there and coming home after 48 hours and saying nothing happened is only an excuse to yourself. Going alongside that, as I said, tactics such as employing naturals, I use them all throughout the year, but they really do come into their own. As we all know, as the seasons come to the end and sort of autumn sort of diminishes and we get into those colder months, those last stocks of naturals get battered. We see, that autumn feed up, if you like, is always been that they were feeding up on the last remaining naturals. And I believe in my tiny little brain that by introducing something that they still feel is a natural food source at that time where they are still looking for those last natural resources, means that you have a phenomenal chance of upping your catches. As I said, and I don't mean necessarily piling it in. I know that there's been a fad for hammering in naturals. 1 or 2 kilos can last you a couple of days. A couple of pints of maggots can last you a couple of days. if you're fishing where the fish are and you can get the bait to them, then little is sometimes better than more, but little is always better than nothing in my opinion. As I said, it's always only going to be my opinion, but the results really have proven themselves. And yet again, continuing on, singles, PVA bags, stringers, little mesh bags even of maggots, little felt bags of crumb, boosted up crumb. There's a million tactics that for me, if you go to the lake in winter, armed with all those tactics, you will land on something that will catch you a fish. Well, the rods have been out for a few motionless hours to be fair, and as I said, not a lot's happened. Have seen 1 or 2 fish in the area, so you know, it's certainly not a pack up and move situation at all. But as always at this time of year, as soon as you get the rods out, it seems like it's dark. So we want to try and do this piece to camera quite quickly because the intention is to skip all the rods in, refresh them all going into night. And that is a crucial thing in the cooler months certainly, but also if you're using naturals, is to sort of redo those rods every couple of hours in my opinion. Certainly in winter, roving around but having fresh bait out there all the time is an absolute incredible edge. I think too many people get sort of bait confident, if you like. Rigs are out, bait's out, next thing that comes along will be a bite. That certainly isn't the case. So as I said, I want to try and get everything done before it gets too dark. So what I'm going to do now, skip the rods in, fresh naturals on, fresh wafters on, and then the actual zig rod that I spoke about earlier, I am going to change to a bottom bait rig. That might not be the case tomorrow certainly, but for today I've seen another few fish in another little area of the swim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put just 2 or 3 spoms of just a single bright fluoro pop up over there. Yet again, as I said in the piece earlier, it's all about mixing those tactics up, trying things. You know, it's not clubbing season by any stretch of the imagination. Now you are fishing for them. You're proper, in my opinion, winter, you are angling for them. So without further ado, all 3 rods in, fresh bait, all 3 rods back out. And there we are, that's the 3rd rod out. Now, I said not a lot's happened, but the lake has been incredibly quiet. We've got people to our left, people to our right, and I think there might have been 1 fish out. And one of the easiest things to do would be to cast these out, beat myself up, and lie in bed for the rest of the evening, but that is certainly not in me to do that. And I said, once I get this line sunk and the bobbin on, I'm going to set an alarm for 3 hours. And I'm going to, for the next couple of hours, at least the next sort of maybe 6-9 hours, do a couple more recasts and just put 1 or 2 more spoms of bait. And all I'm hoping to do is just get 1 fish that's cruising by, that's sort of maybe not necessarily looking for bait, to come across a big pile of naturals, some stinky crumb, and fingers crossed, pick up one of these rigs. But for now, sink the line, clip the bobbin on, put the alarm on, and keep an eye on the water and see if anything takes my fancies for maybe even a move. And that's one of the biggest things, is keeping your eyes out in winter, because moving the rods, recasting, things like that, a bit of activity can be the spark of a good session. Now, as I've said already, yes, winter, the days do get dark very quickly. And as I said, we all talk about hours and hours of darkness, and it is quite easily, and I will be honest, there are occasions where I slip into this category, to lay in your bed chair, watching something on your phone, or watching TikToks or Instagrams or whatever, or obviously tuning into Trakker TV. But what that does is essentially waste a load of time. In spring, summer and autumn, you would never dream of putting yourself to bed at 4 o'clock and sitting in a dark bivvy doing nothing. So the anglers that I've met and fished with over the winter are the ones that utilize those dark hours to benefit themselves. Now, what do I mean by that? Just because you can't see a lot all the time doesn't necessarily mean you can't hear. So I find myself, and it may look psychopathic to some people, but wrapping yourself up warm, sat right at the front of my swim and listening to the fish. You can hear whether they're to the left, whether they're to the right, whether they're in front of you, 10 times more in the dark I find than you can in the light. But by doing that, I mean, it might mean that you don't want to move necessarily to dark, but first light move, you know, if you hear 25, 30 fish to your left, then the temptation will be to pack up and move, certainly. But do not waste the dark hours, as I said, and they're not necessarily always pure dark. You know, those big winter full moons and all the little bits of moon leading up to it and just after it, it's not as dark as you may expect. You know, as I said, you can sit at the end of your swim and within 10, 15 minutes, you'll be amazed how much your eyes can acclimatize and your eyes can sort of work out the light level. And you can see the ripples of showing fish. You can see where they're coming from. You can even sometimes, you know, especially close in, you can see those fish. Utilizing those dark hours, you know, can be a massive edge, because if you're one of the only ones doing it, that to me is something that puts you way, way above the other anglers. Be aware, pay attention, and don't tuck yourself away for that whole 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours of darkness. Be active, be listening, and be ready to go and catch them. Right, well, it is very, very early in the morning. And I know that because I'm up playing my second fish. Got one in the retainer, small common. And I've just had getting the other rod ready to put it back out, and the middle rod's gone. And funny enough, this comes half an hour, 40 minutes after rebaiting in the dark. Let's get this round. So yeah, I'm trying to play this gingerly because it's right next to the net. It looks like a good bit of fish. Oh no. Oh, what an absolute collab. He's had a nightmare. Oh God, I say, that was an absolute netting nightmare. There's a better fish, and now I've really upset it, which is not ideal. Oh God, my heart is pounding. Oh. Sorry, be very, very quiet. Oh. In you go. Yes, there we are. Proof is very much in the pudding. Being active, keeping the bait going in, and even though it's freezing, freezing cold, there's one in the retainer, one in the net. Get in. Well, there we are, fish number 2 of this morning's double take almost. Literally just putting the rod back together and the other one's ripped off. 34 pounds, 6 ounces of Boonies Lake's common, absolutely buzzing. The first one was a small double, but by keeping that rod out for a little bit as I tied a new rig and everything, that rod had time to go off. Oh, absolutely buzzing, over the moon. But proof in the pudding, the effort, putting in that relentless work. I say it was only an hour after I rebaited in the purest of dark. Absolute result. I am buzzing. 34 pounds, 6 ounces, Boonies Lake's common. I am made up. Right, let's slip this one back. Come on, big girl. Yeah. As you can see, I am waded up because just had one an hour after you saw those other two. Just getting ready to do photos of that, and the middle rod that I just recast from that fish is gone, and I'm playing this, and my left hand rod's going as well. This is what can come of winter action if you just try something different, try something new. These are now different rigs, you know, I baited in the dark, I baited first thing this morning, and yeah, 5 bites in the morning. So I'm watching this left hand rod going nuts whilst I'm playing another fish from the middle rod. It's kiting. So it's a bit of carnage, but the thing to do is to stay as calm as possible, deal with the fish you got, and then hopefully you can pick up another one on the other rod. Unfortunately, the left hand is kiting left, and this fish wants to go left. Alright, that's one. Let's just see if this one's still on. It's kited way, way left. Yep, and we're in again. Fortunately, I've only got one net set up. So, yeah, I have to hopefully get Ollie to run down and grab a net quickly, if possible. But yeah, this is what I said, you know, it was easy to be down in the dumps yesterday with nothing happening, but we kept working, kept trying, change the rig, more bait, and yeah, it's come good. Hopefully we can get this one in. Hopefully it's a mirror, to be fair. I've been seeing some amazing photos of these Boonies Lake mirrors, and I've ploughed through some comments, but that looks like another good one in the net there. What a morning's fishing. Unbelievable. Right, I'm going to concentrate on this one now because obviously barbless hooks, and it's been left to its own devices for a little while. So we'll see if we can get this one in. Oh, no, no. Oh, it's come off. Gutted. Unfortunately, I mean, that doesn't hurt any less, but nightmare. However, I'm trying to console myself. That's a good one in the net. So, as I said, barbless hooks, and it had probably 5, 6, 7 minutes maybe of playing around by itself. But yeah, gutted with that. But let's focus on what's in the net.
It's sort of my thing, you know. A little loner.
Well, here is the second fish from this morning's trio of bites. Unfortunately, as you saw, the third one fell off, but barbless hooks and a little bit of time without any tension on the rod apart from the clutch. You know, it got all the way in and then just popped off, unfortunately. However, I was not complaining because this awesome, I think we'll call him a character fish, a little bit of a bent, crooked one with that thick band of what almost looks like fully scales in the middle, but at over 35 pound, I am absolutely blown away. And yet again, I can keep going on about it, testament to working hard in winter. I haven't been cold once on this session because I've been sweating myself, spomming, running around, or just trying to get a little bit of warmth when I needed it. But yeah, big old bunch of maggots on a little pear drop wafter on my favourite slippery kickery dickory rig. Absolutely blown away. I'm gonna slip this one back. I've still got the one from earlier on, another 30 pounder. Blown away, what a session. Right, slip this one back and get this other one out. Well, there we are, the first one of this morning's trio, and to me, the pick of the bunch. As I said, 3 bites in quick succession. Literally, this one ripped off, put it in the retainer for 2 minutes to go down and get Ollie, who had nodded back off, bless his heart. And as he was wandering down the banks to come and do photos of this one, the middle rod went, and then as you saw whilst I was playing that one, the left-hand rod went. So 3 fish, 3 bites. Unfortunately, that last one did fall off, but we can make a million excuses about what happened there, but I don't really care. It's another 30 pounder, just over 30 pound this one. Really stunning, sort of golden Boonies Lake common. Yet again, we keep harping on about it. Testament to working hard and keeping going. Would have been easy to have stuffed those rods up against the bivvy, not bothered baiting at dark, and who knows what would have happened. But 330s, a mega little cool double, and unfortunately a loss, but who is counting that one? What a session. My hands are freezing cold, so we'll slip this one back. What an awesome winter session down on the Manor Farm Complex in Biggleswade. Buzzing. So as a complete roundup, as I said, there are a myriad of things to think about with any fishing, but as I said, especially in winter, for me, there are a few crucial things. First of all, venue, somewhere like here, Boonies, you know, the Manor Farm Complex has got plenty of lakes, as we've addressed earlier, linear. There are loads of these complexes around, and there are some individual standalone lakes that, you know, they've got a reputation for winter form. You know, Orchid's another great one we've had great sessions on. It's knowing those places and learning about those places in the warmer months so that you've got a bolt hole in winter. As I said, I think it's quite easy to get to winter and think, oh, I don't know where I want to go. And then it becomes like a defeatist object of yourself. Then tactics, as I said, we've spoken about it sort of to death really, but being willing to change, having everything on you. Do not go and put your PVA bag stuff and go, I can't be bothered, or only bring a kilo of boilie. go with everything in your armory. Leave it in the van. If they start showing, you know, on the top, you know, even warm weather, or if they start boshing, you think they're zig fishing, if you haven't got that tactic available to you, then it's going to be tougher. So I think having all of those tactics available, have some pre-tied bags, have some pre-tied mesh bags tied up. Being prepared with your tactics is deadly. And I said, moving on, being prepared for your kit in yourself. Don't go in a shorts and t-shirt and flip-flops, because you're going to end up being cold and hating life. Go prepped, go prepare, and be ready for what might come along. As I said, I probably take less on my barrow in winter, but the van has more kit in it. So location, whether that be venue, and then when you get to the venue where the fish are, tactics, be willing to change, and be ready for it in yourselves. And to be honest, you can turn winter into any of the other seasons regards catching and how you feel about getting out on the bank.